fourth graders. My name is Miss Fry, and I'm so excited to work with you all this year. I was with Miss Harrod's fourth grade classroom last year, right before all the craziness with coronavirus happened, and I'm so excited that I still get the opportunity to work with you all this year. So what we're going to do today is I'm going to read a passage with you about the settlement in Jamestown. It is a very small passage, but it contains a few of the things that we're going to be looking for in our standards this week. So, as I read along, I want you to be thinking about those geographical features, human environmental features that impact the survival of both the Jamestown settlers and the Native Americans. Now remember, the first thing that you are going to do before we read this passage is I want you to go into your question journal and write down 2 questions that are before reading. And you're going to write 2 questions that you might have about Jamestown, about how many people survived, about why people didn't survive, and really think about those standards in the back of your mind. And you're also going to write 2 possible answers. And then, during our reading, you're going to come up with at least one. I'm really wanting you to come up with 2 questions that are also about Jamestown and possible answers for those, but those are going to be what you do during. So we're going to start today by reading just this passage that I have linked to you in Google Classroom. You can either read it on your own or read along with me as I'm about to read it right now. As we're reading, please remember your standards. We are going to go back to our standards real quick and look and see what Ms. Fry is asking you to look for. We're looking for geographic features that might have affected the settlers in Jamestown. So let's begin reading. Where was the first permanent English colony in North America? A group of London entrepreneurs were granted permission from King James to set up a permanent colony in North America. Present-day Virginia is where they settled. The goal of the expedition was to seek riches and gold, as well as find a waterway to the Indies. Because the London group was a group of businessmen and they were not familiar with the wilderness living, they depended on artisans and craftsmen that also went on the trip. It was necessary for the settlers to set up a fort almost immediately upon arrival due to attacks they faced from the Native American group called the Algonquins. The fort was triangular-shaped with high wooden walls. A few things found within the fort were a church, a storehouse, bunkhouses, and armory storage. Disease and starvation, as well as attacks from neighboring tribes, led to many deaths at Jamestown. Captain John Smith played a role in helping to keep the fort intact, but he would later depart. John Rolfe would arrive and play a key role in helping Jamestown make money through the growing and exporting of tobacco. John Rolfe is known for marrying Pocahontas, the daughter of the Powhatan chief. That can be kind of a hard word to say. So fourth graders, here's what you should have done so far. Come up with 2 questions for before reading and 2 possible answers to your before reading questions. Now you might not have really completed your 2 questions for your during reading and possible answers for during reading questions in your question journal. And that's okay because this time you were just reading it, kind of getting all the information, and that's all right. Now I want you to read it a second time and really looking for the geographic, locational, or human environmental interaction answers to some of your questions as you read it for a second time. You can either go along with me again for a second time or read it on your own a second time and be writing down maybe in your notes, and you can write down in your question journal some of the factors that you notice might affect the survival of the Jamestown settlers, and you can incorporate what you wrote down in your notes into your during reading questions. So now you are almost done. You just have to complete the 2 boxes at the end. Now that you have read the article twice and you filled out your before and during reading questions and possible answers, now it's time to really reflect on everything that you just read and come up with 2 questions and possible answers for your after reading section. Now remember that these possible answers do not have to be correct. Please don't be Googling any answers to your questions. I really just want to see your thought process after reading your first article on Jamestown?